Right. So welcome to this topic called Montessori Talk. The topic is Trust Your Child, Montessori's perspective. And I'm going to navigate around three subtopics to talk about what does that look like at home and what it might look like at school, but more so at home because you're at home now and the work you do with your children are so important at this time. And what does trust really unfold in your presence for the child? So I am Mirani Smith. Some of you who don't know me, I've been at this school for many, many years in different roles. Right now, I am the executive director of the Houston Montessori Institute, and my work is focused on working with adults now after 30 years engagement with children. This is a great time for me to have such conversations with you. I will have times when you can ask questions. What I cannot do skillfully, I would say, is check the chat room and respond to questions in the chat. So I probably will not do that, but you're always welcome to pose questions and comments there, but I won't be reading that. But if you do have a question, just raise your hand. And I know somewhere on the screen there is also a tab that you can click on to raise your hand. All these IT experts know that, so I know to pay attention to that. But just a hand will help me to pause and listen to your comments or questions. So are we good to go? Yes? Okay. So how does building a foundation of trust go hand in hand with guiding your child? And what's most important about guiding your child and building trust is allowing your child to rise to his potential. So every time you give that opportunity of potential, you're building trust. So it is that little 2-year-old who desperately wants to reach for his toothbrush, and you desperately want to rush and get the toothbrush for him, but he wants to get the stool and reach. So when he reaches his maximum effort, maybe even on his tiptoes, to get the toothbrush. And if you let him, you're trusting his potential of that movement. So that's just a little tiny example. And hopefully at the end, you'll share what you do with building trust. Those older child who's beginning to read and write, and you're writing things for your child, you're getting ready to go to the grocery store, but your child can write. I wonder if satisfying your child's potential is giving her a paper and a pencil and saying, do you want to look in the pantry and see what we need? As opposed to writing for the child and doing that, and that's also collaboration. These are just little examples of nurturing your child's potential in a very organic way. Montessori talks about trusting the natural, physical, and psychological growth patterns. And even though you're signed up at the postdoc school and there are experts guiding your children, really you are the expert because you know your child well. And how do you manage that at home? And so tomorrow I have another parent support series, and if you want more in detail, join in for that one. And Montessori also says this, as I was trying to, as I'm, working on this topic, I thought I'll reach further to different books. And I was reading Montessori's granddaughter's book, Renilda Montessori. And she said, trust the divine plan for your child. Allow it to take place. I come from a family where I'm one of six, and all my parents could think about the divine plan for us six children for either being a doctor or a lawyer. That's actually about it. That was their divine plan. Well, they ended up with one doctor, but all of us, rest of us, have done different things. And as years went by, they settled, and they had the pride of, we tapped our potential, but it took them a while. Montessori says, trust the divine plan for your child. Sometimes years ago when I taught prospective parent classes, I've had these questions from prospective parents. We feel like this is a great pathway to bring our child to postdoc school and would be a pathway to go to Harvard. It's not funny, it was true. So you just have to think about what is your divine plan for the child and what is that for the child. And so allowing things to unfold naturally gives you less stress. And also the child you provide a stress-free environment for your child. So another factor is about telling the truth. Telling the truth simply and factually. So there doesn't need to be all this explanation to cause fear, but actually for trust. When I was working in the school on a day-to-day basis as a early childhood director or as a classroom practitioner, and parents so eager to watch their children work, and they come to observe. And believe me, young children smell their parents even if they're outside. And then they notice that the parent is there, and then the parent runs away. And I've told them, if you're noticed, just come to the door and say, yes, I came to observe and I'm leaving, as opposed to running. Because if not, they're always looking to say, well, maybe today's the day she's coming. It's about trust. And then you say, you're going. Like when you drop your child, it is not necessary to say, I'll be right back, because you're not going to be right back. You're going to work or somewhere, and you'll be back at either 12 o'clock or 3 o'clock. Just be factual. And because sometimes I open the car door and the child says, Mom's going to be right back, so let's sit on the bench and wait. And I said, well, what she means about right back is for you to walk into class, have snack, work, go outside, and be back at 12 o'clock. What she means is be back at 12 o'clock. So that's the fact. Tell the truth simply. And so then they build this trust. So another example, which just seems rightfully so to say now, because we've gone through missing Hurricane Laura and experiencing tropical depression beta. And several years ago, we all did experience Harvey, and the group of primary children were in the gym. And there was this day, everyone's working, and on the skylight, you see the dark clouds, and it was going to rain. And a little child came to me and said, is Harvey coming back? So I said, no, Harvey's gone, but we are going to have a rainstorm. So let's go to the door and look at it, have a better look. See, those are the clouds, not Harvey. They even have never named it. It's just the rainstorm. And they go, oh, and that's all the child needed. The child was not ready to go and learn about storms. The child was not ready to learn about cloud formation. That none of that information was necessary, because he was experiencing something 6 weeks before that, and he just wanted to know the truth. Is Harvey back or not? That was it. So you might have those situations, especially we've been prepared for so many storms that bypassed us. And what do you tell your child? Okay. Any thoughts, questions, comments by now? Anyone? No? You're good for me to continue? Has that been helpful? Okay, few faces. Another important aspect of trust and potential hand in hand is expose your child to various experiences. Okay, so I'll pause there because I see that Susanna would like to ask a question or
Oh,
make a statement.
I'm sorry. No, I was giving the thumbs up that yes, good to go on.
Okay, see, I didn't even notice whether it was a hand or a thumbs up. Thank
Sorry.
you so much.
I have
So
a question. Does that also mean like really early on? Because during COVID, it's been really hard to get him exposed to anything, and I'm always worried that we're, you know, in the house too much, and I want him to like experience different things, but he's been so used to being in the house. And I'm always thinking, oh, maybe he's too young. He doesn't really know experiences. So I'm kind of torn in that regard.
that's a very good question, because the younger they are, actually from birth to 3, is the time to give experiences. But Montessori says bring the world to the child. So that's what you do at home, right? You you sit by the window to experience the sunrise. You experience the sunset.
The rain.
The rain, yes. Step outside and stretch the hand to feel the raindrops. So experience becomes what's age appropriate at that time. But yes, so then you take away the fear of this virus, and you take advantage of the virus by allowing your child to get those experiences right within the confines of your home. Always remember, for the very young child, and you'll hear this over and over again as you have a baby, is Montessori always says, bring the world to the young child.
Yeah. And that includes people as well?
Well, it depends on the people who are in your circle.
Yeah.
Who then it becomes safe. One example is I taught a child who had cerebral palsy. So he wasn't walking till about 18 months. His parents were both pediatricians. They brought the world to him. And when he came barely at 18, no, not even 18, he was walking after 2. When he was barely walking with his contraptions is when he came to my environment, which was primary. So he was about almost 3, but he was walking really late. And he reminded me, because he spoke so well, he used to remind me when he was not working too much that his big work was walking. But his parents brought the world to him, and I asked them, what did you do each day? And they shared so many lovely stories about what they did, because he was in bed for the first 18 months. So bring the world to your child, and you will see is your child a little girl or a boy?
He's a little boy.
A little boy. Okay. From the twinkle, from the movement, you'll know what interests your child more than the other, and then you build on that.
Thank you.
So when I say expose your child to various experiences, like there are different aspects of learning, living things in the environment. Like a lizard, very simple during COVID, lots of lizards outside. Looking at lizards, getting books and pictures about lizards, introducing the name of camouflage. When you see a lizard on a trunk, what color is it? When you see the lizard on a leaf, what color is it? Those are experiences. You can take a walk, a lizard walk, maybe not my favorite walk, but a lot of you might like to go on a lizard hunt. So those are just very simple, but you're pushing potential and experience. Plants, many plants around. You could focus on one thing. Heart-shaped leaves. Let's go around and look for plants that have heart-shaped leaves. And an older child, you could name the scientific name for a heart-shaped leaf, like cordate or something like that. But you build on one thing and you give that experience. Same thing with animals, same thing with geometrical experiences, building blocks. Everybody has building blocks. Children play with it. pause, look at the shape and say, let's walk around the house and look for just this shape that you made in the house. So those are little examples. And one of the most, I would say, critical time now, as we are all anxious about the elections and the medical situation. And so there are conversations around this. Children listen, they overhear. What kind of meaningful conversations can you have with your child about different subjects at the dinner table? And a conversation is a child asks a question, you answer, you ask a question, you answer. So there are meaningful conversations. Sometimes you just have to practice. Sometimes it's not about a question. It's about back and forth. And you know, I worked out with children for so long, and I always learn from them, and I learn more. And a few years ago, I was walking through a classroom, and there were two children sitting opposite each other, and they didn't have any work in front of them, but they were looking at each other. And this little child, and I must have been frowning. So the child said, "We're working. We're okay. We're working." So I said, "Okay." Then the other child said, "Do you want to know what work we're doing?" And I said, "Oh, I'm interested. Yes. We are working. Our work is called chatting. We are chatting." And the child said, "Would you want to sit and observe us chatting?" They were actually chatting. They were having a conversation. What does that look like? So enjoy chats with your child. Over tea, maybe, if they're older. Okay. Are you all okay with me now? Okay. So Montessori talks about this, and a lot of research scientists also talk about this, is give clear, solid structure and respectful communication. And sometimes we can't have very joyful communication if you're trying to redirect, but the children understand our emotional state. It's that whole idea of you love your child no matter what, but you don't like what they're doing. So always be clear, always be solid, always be respectful while you're having conversations and communications, okay? So understanding certain scientific experiments, I know some of you are in distance learning, and your child might be getting a snippet of a lesson, and they don't really want to do more with it, that particular lesson. However, you can build on it, just like if they get a lesson on particular numbers or odd and even, you don't have to take those same materials. Some of you might have those lesson kits. Go outside and get pebbles and sticks and get those numbers in with materials such as the natural ones. So share in a simple way, open the door for interest and find your child's potential, because potential grows when experiences are included. So there's a lesson maybe a teacher gives via the screen or in person, and potential grows when you give the experience. You translate it to daily living. And then not only you're exceeding your child's potential, you're building trust. And most importantly, it's the work of the hands. That's a great way to expand potential. And believe me, I'm still working on that too. I have teenage grandchildren, and they want to run my kitchen too, and I have to let them. So it is very important that we all know that we have a learning curve too to support our children. Any questions before I move to another little subtopic? Okay.
Mirani, just for a second, I'm going to say, if anybody does want to put anything in the chat, if you just are thinking of a question while Mirani is speaking, go ahead and put it in the chat, and I can keep track of that and ask those questions to Mirani.
Oh, that'll be very helpful. I have learned I'm not good with doing both, so I had to let you know. But thank you, Christina. Yes, please add your questions or comments in the chat, and we'll move on to making sure we answer that. So the next,
Sorry,
yeah.
I have a quick question.
Yes, Kelly.
So we're definitely practicing where, trusting the child to do things as much as he can.
Yes.
He's 3.
Yes.
So, but there's also times where we kind of let him do it, but he just drags.
That's
so how
true.
how do we handle that situation?
Yes, trusting is one thing because their pace and your pace is so different. So yes, they are going to drag. They are going to drag. So you have to kind of, and actually my next point is about pace, is how much of this dragging can you handle? So if you're allowing your 3-year-old to venture independently, could you include a timer? There are amazing, beautiful kitchen timers, and say when the timer rings, then this part is finished. Something to think about.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay.
Then it takes away from your control, and also, you have to live with the child, so you have to manage your time. So when the timer rings, this part is finished.
Okay, thank you.
That might be. So going into segue into support your child's unique pace and also allow for the development of self-management. So Kelly, that's exactly what you're doing with your child, is allowing for self-management as a 3-year-old, and your child's unique pace is very different to what you can do. So we had to pay attention to how you're going to make them both, for y'all to both live in cohesion. So a little background about children from birth to 15. So from birth to 6 years, your child is involved in constructing his personality. That's why it is so important. The question Eva asked about the baby is constructing his personality and intelligence. So this process of becoming a thinking, reasoning human being, these children have opinions, these birth to 6-year-olds. And so at home, how do you navigate your way so you allow your child the opportunity to express his opinions? At the beginning, it is just expressions, then it's sounds, then it's one word opinions, and then it's a string of words, and then it's articulate, strong opinions from birth to 6 years. But the child should have the opportunity to express his opinions. So then the time for expressing opinions clearly comes between the age of 6 to 12 years of age. Anyone have that age group? They're a very interesting group. We call it the period of childhood. It's a privileged time of life when the intelligence is most luminous. The capacity of understanding concepts is unlimited. That's when we say give the universe to the child. For birth to 6, we bring the world to them. From 6 to 12, we give them the universe. They go out. And questions that they have hopefully are grounded in the realities absorbed in the earliest stage. And then, of course, you have to expect answers are subject to scrutiny. That's what the 6 to 12-year-olds do. Subject to scrutiny. It's a special kind of person who teaches that age group. So we need to pursue the knowledge sought together with the child. You work hand in hand with the child in elementary. And the reason why I'm sharing this, even though most of you might have young children, is what is to come. So those young people, adolescents, we call them, 12 to 15 years of age, they have to be listened to. They need to be listened to with the heart, perhaps more than with the mind. Because those preteen years are very fragile time. Because the child is then going through this metamorphosis in preparation for adulthood. So Montessori talks about non-intrusion protection for the adolescent. Non-intrusion protection. At that time, parents are very hyped on the academics, and still we need to provide them non-intrusion protection for that age group. So back in forming opinions. In order to form opinions with your very young children, they need to acquire functional independence. And that's when the caregivers, parents, grandparents, nannies, you have this conversation and ask yourself, what kinds of ways that you support the functional independence for your child at home? Physically, that's with movement. I'm a strong believer that you only walk indoors. So where do they run? To provide functional independence, intellectual independence, and emotional. Yes. Is that somebody who wants to talk? No. Okay. So every child, everyone needs to be helped and encouraged to become functionally independent. It is the dignity we offer the child. So what does that look like in your home? A couple of weeks ago, we were talking to parents about functional independence, and they're struggling with, do they allow their 2-year-old to eat by himself and make such a big mess? Or do they feed him so he gets his food intake and has his nutrition? Because it is really troubling to the parents to see all the nutrition on the ground, you know. So how do we manage that? And so one statement I said, the more functionally independent your child is, the more intellectually independent they are. So it's how do we do that? And then of course we brainstormed ways and find out that this child can use every utensil. And so this child is actually is able to do that, and they're working based on their abilities and their acceptance for eating by himself. What other ways does your home look like to support functional independence? Is there space for your child to move, not run, but move? Maybe there is a space for a trampoline, maybe outside. Is there a space for a quiet time for your child? A quiet time to read, a quiet time to observe the outdoors, or a quiet time to chat? So these are great opportunities also to allow your child or to inform your child what is expected now. What is the new normal? And how do you accept that with joy? Because that's what we have to do. Believe me, I was the very first person when COVID-19 came along to say, I will never wear a mask because I'm claustrophobic. I said that emphatically. And then, of course, I have many, many masks because I realized that was not a sensible statement to make. And so I have to bring to the fruition that that's what this is our new normal. And why do we do that? What do children know about wearing masks? A 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, every age child handles a mask differently. One child I happened to observe and be in a classroom for 2 hours a few weeks ago and said, you know, Mirani, some people wear masks on their chin. I don't understand why they do that. So that was a great, I said, yeah, I know that. So talking to your child about the responsibility during this time, washing hands, how instead of being over them, have them be part of the washing hand stations that you have maybe in the bathroom and the kitchen, what kind of soap works for them. And so they have been included in this additional responsibility of supporting them not having the virus. Another functionally independent routines that you might include them in is laundry, meals, rituals. You probably heard all the teachers say this, so I'm saying it again. However, you have to decide what your child is capable of doing. Always add functional independence based on their success. Okay? Any questions about that? No? Okay. Another part that Ranilda Montessori shared, and I thought that is so profound, because obviously she didn't write this book now. She wrote it several years, 20 years ago. She talks about parents and teachers. Parents are parent educators and teachers are professional educators. And sometimes both parties are bound by guidelines. We have rituals at home, and we have routines, and there's time. And then at school, there are routines and time schedules. And so we sometimes are limited. And right now with COVID-19 and how schools are set up, there's limitations to preserve the safety of all the children. So we have those limitations. But Montessori's granddaughter challenged us to be a universal educator. And what does that look like? That's when you're not limited to boundaries and you're unaffected by most of the demands, but also follow the guidelines. So I'm going to have to confess so I can give my own confession and example, okay? So I always use my opportunity with children as living examples. So I'm out there substituting, working in a classroom for a few hours, and they have schedules. They have to stop their work, line up to go outside so the teacher can do her virtual lessons. And there was this child who was doing his addition facts. And I talked to him about, let's get your work finished. You start something, you finish something, and he knows me from the past. And he said, Mirani, you always say this. You have to start something, you have to finish. And I said, yeah, you're right. It's the same today. So and of course he was told it's time to stop his work and get his water bottle to go outside. And he looked at me and I said, not for you. You got to finish this. You have 2 more. Got to finish it and you'll feel better. And of course, now I'm not following, Christina's here to hear this. I'm not following the guidelines that the school has given. This child needs to stop. But I stretched it just a little bit. And I said, you'll be fine. You just get it done. Stop talking and just get your work done. And you'll be fine. And in a matter of a few minutes, he finished. And so I had to confess that I did that. I had to confess to the child's teacher too. But when he finished, he said, you are right. I feel so much better because an older child, when I come back in, I can start something different. So that becomes then that universal educator. You pay attention to those little things. You might be in the carpool line or outside, child's very intent in a book, the story is not finished, or you have some audio tape going on, story is not finished. The child is in hysterics, does not want to leave the car because it's not finished. And what do you do? So you have to kind of pay attention. What do we do with that? Because sometimes you have to tell, when I stop the car, story is finished for now. But sometimes you might say, let's just do one more round so we can be finished. So you have to make those decisions based on the child. But think about that idea of being a universal educator. Always think of what more can you help with your child than being so bound by the rules that may be not catastrophic. The one rule that everyone stops as a practitioner that I followed very well was the fire drill. That's the only time. Anything else, you become that universal person who understands each child. And you can do that too. Be a universal educator. Do some research on that. Because children are remarkable observers. So when I was having this child finish, the child close by said, "Good idea, I'm finishing this quickly." Do you see? Because they're remarkable observers. And what we have to do is, as many of hundreds and thousands of hours of observations I've done, I have to continually refine the art of observation, because that becomes that indispensable component. And that also is another topic for another day, the art of observation for your young child, and always call out to me about that. So we are at this, I'll pause a little bit. Oh, okay, are you all going okay with me? You with me? Yeah. So children do not learn the arts or the disciplines of life from the television or the screen. Unfortunately, the screen is what we're using for some of the distance learners, the virtual learning. What they do is they learn from their experience, from the interaction, from the environment. And they learn from the people who love and who love them, but most importantly, people who enjoy them. So think about that, especially with your caregivers. So the screen does not teach to care, does not teach to care for others, not at that young age, and those tendencies. So, and I know I have witnessed the teachers giving these amazing, profound lessons virtually. And then you have the gift, because you're probably close by, taking that and going into that next level of experience, whatever that lesson is, because you can do that. And that's when they experience that actual feeling of that topic or the abstract concept of addition. Because children at this young age, they construct their intelligence by the functioning of their senses. And you can build on what the teacher on the other end is saying from the screen. Did you hear what this person said? Yes, and it feels like this. And you could have a material in front of you. So bring learning to life. Most importantly is the outdoor learning. I think I have a topic of outdoor learning probably in a few months. Montessori talks of the outdoor learning as one of the main pillars of the Montessori approach. It's integrating nature into children's daily lives. So think about what that might be as your child is exploring the outdoors. What are they absorbing? And then the gift that you give your child is an opportunity to concentrate and be on one task as long as they possibly can, because that then develops that skill of understanding abstract concepts and consolidating that. That was what that older child was doing, is abstracting the concept of addition facts and completing an entire page, and hopefully memorized a few by that whole activity. So you give the child those gifts and what those spaces might look like in your home. So remember, supporting your child's pace. If you have twins, keep in mind each child's pace is going to be uniquely different. So what would that look like? The environment might need to look differently for each of those twins. And then lastly, I want to share with you is how to redirect your child. Avoiding power struggles is my utmost desire for you. And that's not our reality. It's definitely not for any of us. So how do we work with the power struggles? Is a deeper understanding of your child. So Montessori titled one of her articles in a book, Maria Montessori Speaks to Parents. And one article was titled, Let Your Child keep his secret. So children cannot explain what they do at school or even the screen, because that's our time now. Because, as I've said to you again and again, is because they take it through their experience. They might not even know the language to share with you their experience. However, when a child is picked up, parents do want to know what is happening at school. What do they do? And I'm just quoting Montessori here. She said, nowadays we are all so scientific, so busy trying to understand the why and wherefore of everything, that without thinking, many conscientious parents try to understand their children by questioning them. But this is asking for the child's secret. It's their special time and their experience. Montessori even titled the entire book called The Secret of Childhood. So keep that in mind. What does the questioning, what does that look like? That sometimes becomes the power struggle, because the parent is satisfied with an answer. The child does not know how to explain that. So as you are understanding your child and you're trying to redirect your child and avoiding power struggles, children are trying to make decisions. They're trying to figure out who they are, who the child next to them are, who is that person. They're also finding out what the world is like. And in a Montessori YCC and primary environment, the world is brought to them. And in a home environment, you can to a certain extent. And then, most importantly now, with the vibes of the adults around them, they're asking themselves, what do they need to do to survive or thrive? A power struggle is an amazing way to get attention, you know? But they're really asking them, they're asking us through their actions, what do they need to do to survive or thrive? And sometimes it is just an acknowledgement. I see you're very upset. I see you're very upset. Sometimes saying I understand doesn't cut it for them, because they see your face and it doesn't seem like you understand. I see you're very upset. This is what we need to do, but this is what happened, okay? So you show it through kindness. When they're at their worst, you always have to be your best, not easy. So kindness, definite firmness. Firmness shows respect for the child. Firmness also builds trust. When you are firm and they can count on you doing what you're going to say you do. Firmness is very important. So you have to sit down and reflect on deciding what you will do. I also want to share with the idea of firmness. Montessori said in that same article, she said, you will see over the years how the secret of childhood grows into adult firmness of character and a fine independence. Is that what you want for your child? That's the question you ask. And you have a role to play. And the child has a role to play. And every adult around them has a role to play. It's at these times now that we have more opportunities to do that, because our pace has changed, has it not, at this time? So we have more time. And not that we have more time, but we are in confines of our immediate family and our immediate space, and your child is with you. And so those are the opportunities you have now. I like to look at it that way, because when we build on this, our children become stronger by the outcome, because they have to carry the next generation. And we have a big responsibility of guiding them towards that. And you only have a short window. So I actually value that time that I have with you, and I value the time that it's passed on to children, as we say, move it forward. So I'm going to pause now for some questions. Christina, do you have any questions out there, or do you have one, Christina?
So I do have 2 points. First of all, thank you so much. It's so wonderful to hear all of these great reminders, although my boys are now older. 2 things I wanted to mention that were so helpful to me, going back to your point about the power struggle and trying to really not engage in a power struggle. One very concrete thing that you taught me when my boys were so young was to give them choices instead of sort of going down the path of the struggle. And a very simple thing, which maybe a lot of you already know, in the example of getting dressed in the morning and the child, you know, is maybe choosing something that's just not going to work for the day, and returning by saying, you know, here are your 2 options, which one would you like? And that was such a simple concept, and yet it was incredibly helpful. So just trying to give a child choices, I think, is something that helps with that issue of the power struggle. And the other point was when you talked about when you're picking up a child from school, and the natural instinct is to say, how was your day? And a young primary child just doesn't really know how to answer that in a way that is satisfactory to a parent. And you taught me early on that really you greet the child with, I'm so happy to see you. And that changed so much about the way that you'd start that interaction after their full day and my full day, you know, just starting with the joy of, wow, I'm just so happy to see you, and with no expectation of anything back. Those were 2 points that, as you're saying all of this, I think were very helpful to me. And I see we have something in the chat from Anita. Is daily routine good for 10-month-old, or should there be changes regularly?
Daily routine is paramount for babies. A 10-month-old is yes, including yes, daily routine. The short answer is yes. Very important for daily routine. It's what we wouldn't change things around, especially during the holidays. Things do get changed around, and that's when you prepare the child about the daily routine is going to change. Daily routine, again, builds order for the orderly mind. It sets the foundation for the orderly mind. So yes, daily routine is paramount.
And she says, thank you.
So I just want to say that you can always reach out to Christina if you can't reach out, if you can't connect with me. I am on the website. If you have any pedagogical questions, however, if you're in a classroom situation and your child's teacher obviously knows your child much better than I do, or not at all. So always go to your child's teacher first. But any pedagogical questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to someone at the school. We'll continue to have these parent support series that are going to be more engaging because I want to be there to answer questions than have a formal presentation. So hopefully I'll see you in these upcoming topics. Anything else that you have? I know I have a few more minutes, so I'm okay by staying. I also can stay a little longer if somebody has a question that they want to ask later.
In addition to the Montessori Talk series that we have going on, Mirani is also providing the Living Montessori sessions that are also found on the Parent Ed page of our website. So a few more opportunities to learn from I always tease her as being the absolute best Montessori expert around, but Ronnie has a lot of good wisdom to share. So take a look at our website if you'd like more opportunities to learn about Montessori.
We have the Thursday sessions at 7:15, I
Yeah.
guess, every week. And is this gonna be also recurring every Wednesday at 10, or is it just a one-time thing?
It's not every Wednesday, no.
Okay, this is just the one. Okay.
Well, it's
great.
like, I think it happens a few times per semester. Let me see if I
Okay.
can pull up the schedule here.
And I
Are
think,
you,
yeah, the parent support series, Christina, is it every other Thursday maybe?
Yeah, every other.
every other Thursday?
Yeah.
And are they gonna be recorded also or not?
Yes.
Yeah, they're.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you. Thanks, Mirani. This is
Thank you.
great.
I am so glad you joined. So Christina, you have the recording of this and I'll have the recording of the parent support series. So yes.
Yeah, and we will provide the recording on the website.
Oh, okay. Maybe you delete my confession.
All right.
Okay, well, I really appreciate your attendance. Thank you so much.